Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to NPL Minors Season 5, Week 9 Power Rankings. Joining with me today is my good partner, BM.
Hey guys.
So, this is our second to last week doing the PR, so it's always been a really fun time doing all of this. And without further ado, let's jump straight into number 16. And I do believe that we both have Mio and the Oklahoma City Thunders.
Yeah, I believe so. Now, looking at the match, I'm not sure how to feel about it because Mio got swept by an Alolan Doug trio. I mean, I would have been fine if it was just a regular Doug trio with Arena Trap, but considering this is the Alolan version that has less speed and Steel type, but that doesn't really matter. He didn't have much counterplay towards the Alolan Doug trio. I believe he picked up 6 kills as well as that he really didn't play around him on the early game too well. The fly on the tornadoes was interesting, however, it wasn't able to work out in the end because of the Doug trio resisting it, as well as its ability tangling hair. And in the end, there really wasn't anything that Mio could have done to stop the Doug trio. The one thing I will point out though is when it does go for the ground EMZ up against the Incineroar, he could have potentially scouted by saving by going into the Gliscor just to scout it out, because I do believe Incineroar would have been able to take a regular Earthquake from a Alolan Dugtrio from full, but certainly not a Tectonic Rage.
Yeah, definitely. This game was really interesting to say the least. One thing I do say is that I did like the Z Fly Tech because we all know that Gardevoir is bulkier on the special side, so a Z Fly Tech was really cool to be able to catch the Gardevoir off guard. But however, after that, the game pretty much went downhill for Mio as the Alolan Dugtrio tried to set up a sub as Mio goes for a taunt instead of attacking the Dugtrio, and another thing that I want to point out is that he went hard into his Gliscor on the Dugtrio, which ended up getting straight KO'd by Ironhead, which I don't think was the right play, considering that if you let your Gliscor get weakened this early, then there is definitely the potential to flinch, as you saw in the game, and also the fact that it would have been much better to just sack off something to bring in Gliscor more safely. Other than that, there really isn't much to say. He revealed that his Gliscor was in Toxicor, so that was pretty interesting as well, considering reliable recovery would have been pretty good to be able to beat the Alolan Dugtrio 1v1. So it was also slower than the Dugtrio itself, so we know it's in Scarf. And the flinch was a bit unfortunate considering he could have revenged the Dugtrio with the Rabombi, but however, he did risk his Gliscor in on hard on a Ironhead. So I do believe that was a misplay. Other than that, he as you said, he did not scout for the ground EMZ, and he just straight up got swept by the Alolan Dugtrio. So probably in the next week, I believe Mio should probably play a bit more carefully around like a more dangerous threat, and not try to preserve all of his mons when some of them are pretty unnecessary. Such as in this case, the Tornadus I found was unnecessary, and he could have just sacked it off to go into Gliscor to be able to revenge the Dugtrio and have a lesser chance of being have a less chance of being flinched.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I'm interested to actually see what his Gliscor set would have been, because I don't think, unless you're running Scarf or Banded for some reason, there's no reason not to run Toxic over on your Gliscor. But unfortunately for me, he won't be able to face an Alolan Dugtrio next week. Now, moving on to number 15, we have Cloud Envy and his Jersey Weavals. And similarly to the previous match we were talking about, Envy didn't really play the best, and he kind of just got steamrolled by a Calm Mind 3 attacks. Yeah, Calm Mind 3 attacks, you pop a berry, a Zelf behind screens. Now, during the match, I felt like he set up with the Charizard Y way too early, especially when things such as Scarf Mienshao, potentially Rock Slide, could have come, as well as that I think again it was a bit too early for him to set up at that point, just because he hadn't weakened down Zeden's team enough. But there's not really much to say. Once Zeden was able to get up the Reflect or Light Screen, I believe, one of the two, from the level, he was able to set up a Calm Mind with the Azelf, and that basically ran through Cloud Envy's team because of the Papa Berry, making it so that the Azelf could live any one hit from the Mega Lopunny and proceed to retaliate with a Psychic.
Yeah, definitely. This game was really unfortunate for him, considering he had a cool tech such as Scarf Trick Perk on Z to catch stuff such as the Gossarito or the Clefable off guard, and he had Z Sign Day Charizard as well, which I believe both would have been really cool to see if they actually worked, considering Zeden doesn't have any fire resist on the team that he bought. However, as you said, he definitely did sell it way too early, and I do believe that the a Zelf sweep was potentially avoidable or preventable, considering uh, Cloud can always go into the Scizor to get off BP damage and then go into Lopunny to go revenge it. However, he did sack his Scizor way too early to opposing Mienshao from Zeden. Considering that the Charizard was really there was no point of saving the Charizard at that point since it was set up too early and without Sun, it can't really damage the Clefable at all. So I felt like that might have been a small misplay from his part. And other than that, there really isn't much to say. After his Scizor went down, you can see that the only mon that can actually deal damage to the Azelf is the Lopunny on Cloud's team. And because of the Papa Berry, he was able to beat the Lopunny 1v1. So other than that, he just got swept by the CM Azelf. So really unfortunate game for Cloud. I do believe that he could have played that a bit better. I really liked his prep, but I feel like he just definitely misplayed vs the Azelf and potentially the Mienshao as well.
Yes, now moving on to number 14. I believe, we both have the Uzi Gunner and his Bullet Punch Club. Now, looking at the match itself, I felt like Uzi, he let his Spadef Tyranitar get chipped down way too early, causing him to be a lot more weaker to the Mega Houndoom, considering the fact that his Volcanion couldn't sponge hits because it was too KO'd by the Dark Pulse. I felt like he played decently around the Landorus Incarnate early game with his Klefki. However, it was unfortunate that he wasn't able to get the Toxic off on the Mega Houndoom due to the nerf this generation with Prankster not affecting Dark types. And yeah, as I said, he let his Tyranitar get chipped down too early in the game to the point where Mega Houndoom was really a huge threat up against him in the late game. The Trick Room on the Reuniclus I thought was really interesting. That could have presented itself as a decent win con. However, due to Turk's natural team, how bulky it is, as well as his counterplay towards the Reuniclus by stalling out Trick Room turns by pivoting into the likes of either Mega Houndoom, a Goodra, or the Silvally Shield type, I believe. He really wasn't able to utilize that the best. He probably could have done it better in the in-game, however, he wasn't able to utilize it the best. And really, in the end, he was just swept by, he was broken down a lot by the Thunder Starion. And in the end, I believe the Mega Houndoom came through for him. Came through for Turk, which is what lost in this match.
Yeah, definitely. This match was really well played on both sides, I believe. However, as you said, Uzi let his primary walls to Turk's sweeping run get weakened really early in the game, being the Tyranitar and the Delmise. Considering Delmise was pretty much great this matchup, walling both the Landorus, the Breloom, and even potentially the Sundress if it didn't carry the Dark Pulse, or it can pivot in on the Thunderbolt. However, as you said, he let his Tyranitar get chipped down really early into the game, allowing basically Houndoom to be a much larger problem to Uzi's team. And then he did manage to get off a Toxic off on Goodra, which was great. However, the Goodra ended up being a quite offensive version, I believe, a physically offensive version. And he ended up having to force his Delmas to take unnecessary damage in stuff such as Earthquake and a Outrage from Goodra. And because I'm assuming he's going to be Cobra to be able to deal with the Thunderous Dark Pulse or the Thunderous Dark Pulse. So he didn't have any recovery on his Delmise, meaning that once Delmise got in and it had to take unnecessary damage, and it couldn't really recover any of its health, so it ended up not being able to function as a wall as well as Uchi might have wanted it to function as. And then in the end, he ended up getting swept by, or not swept, but he ended up getting swept by the Breloom, with the combination of Spore, Mach Punch, and Bullet Seed. So other than that, in terms of gameplay, I feel like Uzi could definitely have played this a bit better or a bit more aggressively with his ridiculous considering he set up really late into the game after his Delmise went down, so he really didn't have any chance to let it do much work considering Trick Room ran out and Turks Braden can just spore it. So I feel like Uzi had a good team, but just didn't really consider to save his defensive pivots until the end of the game, and that's what ended up losing him the game.
Now moving on to number 13, I believe again we both share the same team with Tone and his red main Clowitzers. Now looking at the match itself, I felt like Tone played alright in the early game. However, I think the turning point in this match was when he decided to sack off his Mew to the Life Orb Greninja, which basically left a hole open for Techno in order to exploit Tone's team, because if you look at his team composition, at that point in the match, by the time he had sacked Mew, he had his Scolipede, his Rotom Fan, a severely, well not severely chipped, but relatively chipped down Komodo, as well as the Primarina, and that left him really wide open to the Lycanroc Dusk, or Midday form actually, as well as it's, I believe, banded Accelerock. So that's another thing I want to pick on is Tone's offense was checked massively by the priority Accelerock from the Lycanroc, and I felt like he wasn't able to do much about that. He wasn't able to make any aggressive doubles on his part in order to lure, if not beat, the Lycanroc, which I think was one of the main problems in this matchup. As well as this, progressively throughout the match, he let his Pokemon get chipped down. Like, say for example, the Rotom Fan, when it switched on the Venusaur, was a good example of this. Another example was when the Komodo switched in on the Toxic from the Mega Steelix, but at that point the game already was in favor of Techno. And again, decent prep, but I don't think he played this one the best.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like definitely this game, Tone had decent momentum early on to the game, but as you look at his team, you really see how weak Tone's team is to rocks and hazards, rocks specifically, considering the fact that 3 of his 6 mons are weak to it, and the 2 of the other 3 don't really have any reliable recovery, especially Primarina, since his Primarina was his primary check to the Greninja. Other than that, I do believe he played the game pretty well this game, being able to pressure Techno early on, and he did kind of let his Arcanine get weak in early game, but which kind of let him exposed to Sylveon a bit. But as you said, the main problem this game was definitely letting his Mew get sacked this game. Other than that, there really isn't much to say except for the fact that he could have potentially played a bit more aggressively with his Primarina, trying to double it in potentially Greninja and etc. However, there really wasn't much that he could do this game, considering Techno had a lot of momentum. And after his Primarina got chipped down to a certain extent and his Mew died, the Accelerock pretty much just cleaned up the game, considering how weak Tone's team is to Rock-type moves, as we said earlier. So to remedy this, I feel like he could have potentially... he definitely could have saved his Mew, but other than that, he could have tried to not let his team get chipped down too much in the early game and try to go for a few more aggressive plays and trying to get momentum more on Techno. And maybe bring a Defogger. I'm not sure if Rodon had Defog, but he never got a chance to get it off, so that was not what he wanted either. So overall, I did like his prep, and he definitely he just had to play a little bit better, and I felt like he would have been able to take the game.
Moving on to number 12, we have Illusion and his last Vicus Venusaur, and I do believe we both share the same number 12. Now, looking at the matchup, in similar vein to the Jersey Weaviles and the Oklahoma City Thunderous, Illusion got ran over by the Calm Mind Taunt Draining Kiss Comfy. But looking at the match itself, I really like the way that Illusion was able to utilize his Infernape and his Sceptile in the early game in order to keep up offensive momentum. However, because the Infernape was actually Life Orb and it was running Flare Blitz, and because of Hiker Toad's options into pivoting into it, the Infernape was getting chipped down massively, and if the Infernape had a lot more longevity in this match, I feel like it could have done more. However, another key part of the match was when Hiker was able to get off the trick up against the Gligar, basically willowing it down to the point where it couldn't reliably check some of Hiker's offensive Pokemon, such as Zard X, it can reliably switch into it. It would have been 2-hit KO'd by Flare Blitz at that point. Same with Track, and would have probably been 2-hit KO'd by the Stone Edge. However, as said before, he didn't have much counterplay towards the Calm Mind Comfy, and by the time the Comfy was sent in, it was able to 1v1 the Electric Seed workup Sceptile, and at that point, Illusion just lost to it.
Yeah, definitely. I felt like this match, Illusion definitely under prep for Hiker. I don't know how many times Hiker brought Comfy this game, but I do feel like Illusion could have definitely prepped better for the Comfy. As you said, the Life Orb Infinite was getting worn down really quickly early on in the game, considering Hiker had pivots and Yuxi for his close combat and etc. However, I don't think Illusion really could have prevented the sweep from Comfy. Looking at team preview, unless his Gliscor or not Gliscor, Gligar had a good amount of attacking investment for EQ to do a bunch of damage. Considering Comfy can just taunt the Gligar to prevent a toxic, and then spam Draining Kiss to negate the EQ damage at +2. So I don't know if there was really much things Illusion could have done this game, except for probably preventing his Infinite from getting chipped down too early, so it can tank a +1 Draining Kiss. But other than that, there really isn't much I see that could have really helped Illusion win this game, considering how good Comfy was this matchup. Tom beat the 2 defensive mons, and the other 4 offensive mons were either OHKO'd by boosted Draining Kiss or specially offensive. So other than that, I do believe he did play the early game well, letting the Rodom take massive damage and weakening Zard a lot. However, again, as a Palm Team preview, there really isn't much I thought that he could have done via the Comfy. So I feel like for Illusion to probably do better in week 10, he would just have to prep for his opponents like lower tier threats, because I do believe that he played to the best he could have done. It was just that his prep for Comfy was lackluster, and that's what cost him the game.
Now, moving on to number 11, I believe we both have Olympic Flagon and Keegan. Now, looking at this match, unlike some of the other matches we've talked about in the OKC, the Weaviles, and the Venusaurs, this one was quite close throughout most of the match. However, Keegan wasn't able to come through. I thought some of his prep was interesting. Certainly, he didn't have much counterplay towards the Tornadisterian, because if you look at Keegan's team, his flying resist was Skarmy, which isn't taking on a Tornty 1v1. I thought the Calm Mind Lava Plume Entei was interesting in order to potentially 1v1 a Suicune. However, I don't think it was the best set of bring. I think just bringing something like potentially Charcoal with Toxic could have certainly been a bit better. However, Keegan was able to utilize the Calm Mind Baton pass from the Mega Medicham in order to pass into the Yanmega and really do a lot of work to John's team. If it weren't for the Toxic coming off, I believe, the Suicune, then I think Keegan could have won this match. However, because the Suicune was able to get the Toxic off, he was able to, the Yanmega, that is, was able to be stalled out, and by that point in the match, Keegan didn't really have much to do with the rest of John's team. John was able to preserve the mons he needed in order to win in the endgame. And honestly, I think his prep could have been better. Certainly a better check to Tornadus. Therian could have been way better, because again, if you look at Keegan's team, the Yanmega, the Mega Medicham, they're both weak to flying. Skarmory is weak to Heat Wave. Seismitoad and Zygarde, as well as Entei, they don't really appreciate taking Hurricanes as well, albeit the sunny day from the Entei could have lowered the accuracy of the Hurricane in Sun, but I don't think that's sufficient enough in order to check the Tornty. And overall, it was a decent showing from Keegan, but I expect better of him.
Yeah, this game was really interesting. I felt like Keegan was close to getting swept early in this game, considering he was 3 months down vs John. However, the CM Baton Pass Medi was able to into Yamega was able to bring the game back to a certain extent. I feel like one thing that I want to comment about is how Keegan let most of his mons get chipped down early game, such as the Seismitoad and the Skarmory, or straight up letting the Skarmory just die early game when I felt like something like Seismitoad could have been more expendable, considering Skarmory could have still been useful in checking the Gallade or potentially whirlwinding a Curse uh, Snorlax or etc. Other than that, I feel like there was actually one saving grace for Keegan, and he could have actually won the game if he went for two Calm Minds on the Musharna. Because I felt like because he knows that the Musharna is fully Fistef, and that the Metacham was at 47%, I believe. So if he set up another Calm Mind on John's Dazzling Gleam, I do definitely believe that he would have lived, and he would have been able to baton pass two boosts into Yamega, and that would have definitely won him the game. Considering we saw that with the extra boost, he would have been able to take out the Suicune with Air Slash into Bug Buzz. However, of course, he had to rely on the flinches still, but he definitely could have won the game if he had two boosts instead of one. And other than that, there really isn't much to say. I do believe that Keegan could have prepped better with his other mons this game, and he definitely could have played better. And the only saving grace that he had was the Calm Mind Metacham. And yeah.
Yeah, the Calm Mind Metacham I think was a really good bring on his part, and certainly you could have set up on the Musharna again. However, if played correctly, John could potentially doubled into his Torn Chi if he wanted to make an aggressive play in order to check the both the Mega as well as the Metacham if it did go for the Calm Mind. Now moving on to number 10. Again, we both have the same team in Carney Hovo and his Vancouver Stealth Rocks. Now looking at this matchup, I do think turn 1 Carney should have probably scouted for the Z-Fly, seeing as how it isn't entirely out of the question that Torn Eye could have ran the Z-Fly. However, it was unfortunate that he let his guard, literally let his guard go down turn 1. But I do think Hitmonlee was interesting, considering the fact that he was able to utilize it decently, seeing as how Mio didn't have the best high jump kick switch-ins. And the Alolan Doug trio, this season, Carney's been using it amazingly. And I do believe it did pick up 6 kills in this match. Albeit he did have to hack his way through a Gliscor. And he did have to sucker punch the he could have potentially have been sucker punched Mind Games with the Torn Eye. However, again, he was able to utilize Alolan Dugtrio amazingly in this matchup, and I believe that's what won him this game.
Yeah, definitely. Not Keegan. Carney definitely surprised me this game with the Alone the Trio. Sub really worked out this game, as you can see for him. Mio's really only ground resists, or the Torn T, which isn't that bulky, and the Gliscor, which could have walled the Alone the Trio if it was something like a fairly Fizz-Def based Toxic Orb Gliscor. However, as you can see, Mio wasn't this set, and Carney was just able to take advantage of that and just win the game with the Alone Look Trio. One thing I do just want to point out is similar to Keegan, he didn't have a flying immunity or a good flying immunity or a resist, not immunity, resist at all, considering his only resist being Alone Look Trio. And that could have potentially cost him the game if he didn't flinch the Gliscor. But other than that, I do believe he utilized Alolan Dugtrio really well this game, and he's really showing how good of a low tier threat it is, and how he's really proving me wrong. How initially I thought that this was just like a meme pick, but he's really utilizing it really well this season and showing off that it's not just a low tier pick, and that he's able to utilize it to be able to actually sweep teams and win games.
Yeah, I do believe Alolan Dugtrio is actually quite high in the MVP leaderboard as well. Being in the top 5, that's really astounding for a Pokemon that I believe is only worth 4 or 5 points in terms of its pricing. But moving on to number 9, we both have Owen and his Leinster Latias. Now, looking at this matchup, Owen had a really tough matchup going into this, considering the matchup that he had to deal with: a Mega Aerodactyl, a Cobalion, a Selgor, Dugtrio, and Manaphy, all really working well up against his draft, seeing as how Manaphy Mega Aerodactyl, and even to an extent, something like an SD or a Taunt or even Sub Cobalion could have handled his fat really well as this, some of his offense would have been checked amazingly in this matchup. Things like Victini, Mega D, and C, as well as even the Jolteon, would have been able to been revenged by the Scarf Dugtrio. However, in the matchup itself, he was playing this match all right. He was playing it a bit passively, I feel, but it was really unfortunate because he was getting his team chipped on way too early on in the match, getting the Ride-On Weakened, getting the Tangrowth Toxic, as well as I do believe switching in his Aromatisse on the Cobalion. And the turning point in this matchup was certainly the second final turn in the match, which was actually that flinch on the Aromatisse. Now, I believe he did go for Heal Bell at that point, which would have put him in an alright position. However, it would have left his Aromatisse weakened, his as well as his Ride-On weakened. The Tangrowth could have potentially been toxic again by the Mega Aerodactyl, as well as the Alamomola, which I just like to touch on. I think the Alamomola set was interesting. I understand its purpose in trying to lure and effectively beat the Manaphy 1v1. However, I felt like just running something like a potentially like just using Jolteon as your offensive check to Manaphy would have been way better. However, because of the manner in which he was playing this match, as well as the hacks, and I do believe he was playing this match at 2:30 in the morning, which would have been really, really rough. He ended up forfeiting only in, I believe, turn 17.
Yeah, definitely. This game was really rough for Owen, considering it was his retirement game, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
So definitely, so definitely unfortunate that Owen's going to leave the community after this match, and I felt like this game really didn't serve him justice as his last game. But moving on to the actual game, this was a really tough match for Owen, considering I had one of the best sweepers or best stall breakers on this team, being the Manaphy, because not only does it get access to Tail Glow to be able to break past bulky or drafts, it also has Calm Mind to be able to beat something such as the Jolteon potentially. Other than that, I do believe that Owen played decently. We were pretty well this early game. I really liked how he tried to go for the Leaf Storm on a predicted roost on the Aerodactyl. If it worked, that would have been a really good turn for him. And I really liked the Flame Orb on Momola Brain, considering Toxic was 100% coming. There was no doubt in anyone's mind that Toxic wasn't coming via Owen's team. So the Flame Orb on Momola was a really, really good bring. Other than that, the hacks really just didn't go his way. He got spread F drop twice on the Manibus, making it really low and preventing it from Punchet defogging later in the game, or dealing any damage or roosting up. And then he got flinched by a Cobalion, furthermore, not allowing his defensive pivots to wish up. So it's unfortunate that Owen had to retire this way, but yeah, that's all I can say about this game.
Yeah, it is real unfortunate the manner of this match. And just as a heads up, Owen will be forfeiting his Week 10 match up against Carney. He did say this in his upload that, as already mentioned multiple times by both me and Genius, he is retiring from Pokemon, and we do wish him good luck in his future endeavors. However, we need to continue with our power rankings, and moving on to number 8, we have IA and the Kinetic Cobalions, which is actually the same match as exactly the same match that we were talking about just now. I thought IA's prep was really good for especially since he was able to utilize a lot of his mons well, seeing as he did have a really strong matchup with his stall breakers and Mega Aerodactyl, potentially Cobalion, certainly the Manaphy. However, he did bring more interesting sets, especially on the Manaphy, bringing something like I believe it was Scarf, U-turn, Liquidation, Knockoff, and I believe another filler move, which I thought was interesting prep. I understand his reasoning for it. It was because he knew that Owen would have probably predicted a Tail Glow or a bulkier set, and hence he would bring the specific counterplay towards that, and things like the Assault Vest Tangrowth, potentially a weird Almamola set, which is what Owen brought. However, he was able to keep up a fair amount of offensive momentum in this match, But it was unfortunate that he did get the flinch on the aromaties. I would have certainly been interested to see how this match would have played out. I certainly do think that if Owen did go for the heel bell on that turn, which the aromaties got healed, I certainly do think that IA could have probably still won this match, albeit it would not have been a 6-0, but rather it would have been a much closer match. It certainly would have drawn out a lot more than it did in actuality. However, I think his prep was good enough for him to win.
Yeah, definitely. This game was unfortunate, as we said before, and we really didn't get to see the prep on both sides of the match. I do know that II probably had Toxic on the majority of his mons, and the Manaphy was probably a stall-breaking set, but other than that, there really isn't much to base off on. I did like how he was able to get off a Toxic on the Tangos early on and a Toxic on the Rhydon early on to the game, forcing Owen to lose momentum by going for heal bow, etc. If he had the chance to, of course. Other than that, he did kind of let his Manaphy get chipped down early game, and he reveals to be U-turn Manaphy instead. So I am assuming that the Manaphy is a Scarf variant.
Yeah,
I
it was
say.
Scarf. Scarf physical, I believe.
Oh, Scarf physical. Yeah, that's a really interesting set. I'm not sure what it accomplished. I haven't watched his team builder yet, but it was an interesting set. I was surprised. I was wondering how it would have worked as I watched this replay. So that was definitely something that I kind of wanted to see how he could have utilized, because I felt like a special Manaphy set is definitely what I would have bought this game. Probably something Tail Glossary attacks, or maybe Z Rain Dance, Calm Mind. But yeah, so again, the Manaphy set was really interesting. I would love to see how he would have utilized it. And other than that, his other sets were pretty standard in terms of prep wise. Toxic bulky Aerodactyl to stall out Owen's bulky Mont, or put them on a timer. But other than that, we really didn't get to see much, considering Owen got hacked through the game and ended up forfeiting. So yeah, I ended up 6-0 Owen this week, and that's really all I can say.
Yeah, again, it was really unfortunate the manner of this match. However, we need to move on to number 7, and again, we both share these same spots with John W on his Indiana Keldeo. Now, looking at the match, I felt like John did well in this match. He was able to utilize his Torrency really well, being able to chip down the sides of the Toad. It was a bit unfortunate about the confusion hacks. However, again, the Torrency really came through for him against chipping down the sides of the Toad, eliminating the Scar Armory. He was able to utilize Musharna well as a decent check to standard Metacham. However, because of the nature of Keegan's Metacham being Calm Mind Baton Pass, he wasn't able to do much about that. He certainly could have made an aggressive double on the Baton Pass play towards the end of the game. However, I do feel, again, he played around Keegan's team really well. Threats such as the Entei, as well as the Metacham, were kept in check by its counters, really, in Musharna and Suicune. And again, he was able to play around Keegan's team really well. I felt like he didn't have to make too many aggressive plays in this matchup. I felt like he was able to really check Keegan's offense really well. The only thing that would have probably scared him in this matchup would have either been the Zygarde, which ended up not doing much, as well as the Yanmega, which could have potentially swept through his team if not for the Toxic Suicune. But overall, a good week for John W. And just in general, his prep in this match is really, really good.
Yeah, definitely. I really liked how he utilized his Torrency early on in the game, being able to chip down the Seismitoad, and knowing that Keegan really didn't have a good flying resist, so he led with it. Other than that, he brought the Musharna for the Metacham again, and he was able to play around the special Entei really well, knowing that Snorlax was a hard wall to it. Other than that, there isn't much to say, other than he could have got swept by the Mega. But I felt like he definitely could have seen the Baton Pass coming from the Metacham, considering you don't see Calm Mind Metacham that often. So he could have potentially doubled into something like the Torrentee, or maybe even a Snorlax. But other than that, there isn't much to say. He played the game well early game, and he managed to mitigate the Mega from sweeping. albeit that it did go for a few air slash flinches during the game. But yeah, so overall, it was a pretty well played game by him, and I do believe that he has the potential to win the league with his current performance.
Yeah, certainly a strong performance on his part. Now moving on to number 6, I believe we both again have Turkey in his Toronto Lux race. Now looking at the matchup, I felt like Turk prepped really well in this match. He was able to he certainly had quite the decent matchup for a lot of his offensive Pokemon, such as the Mega Houndoom, the Landorus, the Thunderstarian, as well as the Breloom in the match, really putting a lot of pressure on Uzi. Especially the Breloom, I feel, because it was able to check the likes of the Kyurem Black, the Tyranitar with its stab. But what really led Turk to win this match was he was able to get a lot of good chip on the bulky Tyranitar turn 1, which really helped with potential breaking from Thunderstarian, as well as the Mega Houndoom. And I felt like he played around the Volcanion alright. I think he would have probably expected Toxic to come off on it up against his Gudra. However, I don't think there really was much he could have done, considering he doesn't have the best switch into Volcanion if you bypass the Gudra. I do feel he played around the Klefki really well, being able to get a Brox in order to pressure Uzi's team with the likes of Kyurem and Volcanion both being weak to rocks, which is really, really good for him. And in the end, his offense was basically just able to outlast Uzi's offense, and I believe that's what won him this match.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like Turk managed to play and break past Uzi's walls really well this game, because if you look at team preview, the only thing preventing Turk's offensive threats and Lando and Breloom was the Delmise, and the only thing preventing the Hounding from going wild was the Tyranitar. So he was able to weaken both of these mons really early into the game with the Silvally and the Gudra respectively, and he was able to get off a lot of utility with the defog parting shot Silvally, managing to get off 50% on the Tyranitar and defogging away rocks multiple times. Other than that, he made good doubles, such as the Landorus on the Volcanion, forcing the Delmise to take unnecessary damage to facilitate the Breloom sweep end game. And as you can see, it did happen in the end. And he was able to play around the Reuniclus great as well, and he also had a good mindset of the game's mechanics in his mind, pivoting into the Tyranitar on the Klefki. So overall, I felt like this was a really well played game by Turk, and his prep and his play really showed, because he was able to weaken Uzi's main checks to his sweepers, and he was able to sweep with his respective sweepers in the end. So overall, really great performance by Turk.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Another strong showing from Turk. Now moving on to, finally, a few discrepancies in our power rankings. I think we'll talk about my number 5 and your number 3, which is Jake and his Virginia Tech Frokies. Now, looking at the match, I felt like really good prep on Jake's part to bring the weakness policy Togekiss, certainly realizing the fact that Turbo didn't have the sturdiest of flying resist. I know he has a Heatran, but obviously that underspeeds Togekiss, and Togekiss can run something like Horus Spear, for example, in order to hit it for a decent amount of damage. But I feel like throughout the course of the match, he was able to just keep up a lot of offensive momentum. Things like the Baton pass as well from the Togekiss, being able to pass it into the Mega Kangaskhan and really break down Turbo's team decently well. And by the time the Kang had already gotten chip off the Hitmonlee, as well as the Pinsir, the Heatran, and the Dusknoir going down at that point, it was just the match was just in Jake's favor. He really played really well with his offensive team in general. Was able to capitalize on Turbo's lesser speed and lesser breaking power up against his team, I feel, and that's what won him this match.
Yeah, definitely. I really like Jake's prep this game, considering how, as you said, Turbo didn't have a solid flying resist, and he was able to use the weakness velocity Togekiss and Baton Passer into the Kangaskhan to be able to do huge damage to Turbo's team. Other than that, there really isn't much to say. He utilized his Togekiss and his Kangaskhan really well, and he was able to clean up the game with the not superiority Bishop into the Garchomp, I believe. Other than that, there really isn't much to say about this game. Um, I know that he did crit the Dusknor, I believe it
Yeah,
was the Togekiss.
yeah, he did.
Or was it the Dusknor? Yeah, it was the Dusknor. So I don't think that would have mattered as much, considering it ended up getting Baton Pass or into the Kangaskhan anyway. So in the end, I feel like Jake's prep was really what carried him this game, and he definitely lived up to his prep by playing really well with his Togekiss as well. So props to him, and I do believe that he was able to climb back from his start of the season, and now he is second seed in the league.
Yeah, I do agree. Most of I believe our top five had really good showings this week. But moving on to my number four and your number five, we have Zedon and his Tulsa Excadrillers. Now, I really like the Gothorita set this match with I believe it was a Violite Mirror Code in order to potentially sponge hits from the likes of the PZ as well as potentially Charizard and Latias. I felt like he should have probably gone for Rock Slide or what I believe was Drain Punch on his Scarf Mienshao because that would have neutered Charizard. Yeah, he could have just killed the Charizard when it had gone for the Sunny Day. However, again, I really do like the prep with the Clefable dual screens. I thought was really interesting. For the most part, it was able. For the most part, dual screens Clef would be able to 1v1 a Mega Lopunny, bar things like Encore, which I don't think Cloud actually revealed because Lopunny did go down to the Calm on itself. And I thought just the nature of his team as well as the Azelf set that he brought was able to win him this match. He was able to really utilize his a lot of offensive momentum up against Cloud's team really well, and that's what won him this match.
Yeah, definitely. As we said before, Zedon Sweat was the CM Azelf, and he was able to use his Landorus, not Landorus, his Clefable's Light Screen really well this game, and he was able to put on great pressure with the Mienshao. And he definitely did expect the Z Sunny Day from the Charizard, considering he went hard with Mienshao on the Charizard. So really, really good play expecting that. However, he did kind of play a bit risky against the Charizard, going for High Jump Kick, etc. But I feel like High Jump Kick might have killed the Charizard from 43, yeah, 43, because of Mienshao is ridiculously, stupidly overpowered with Reckless HJK. So I do believe that if it killed, it was a no risk play. Other than that, it was a really well played game by Zedon. He was able to get up the light screen and set up his with his Azelf, and then he was able to clean up the game pretty well with his Azelf, considering he had the Papa Berry as well to be able to help VSD Lopunny.
Yeah, I do agree. Again, another really good showing from one of the top five. But next we'll talk about it's Turbo and his Phoenix Midnight. And I believe I have them at number 2, and you have them at number 4. But looking at the match, I felt like Turbo he didn't have much momentum throughout the course of the match. But with the weakness policy, Togekiss was certainly a really good bring on Jake's part, and he didn't really have much counterplay to that. I'm not entirely sure the flinch mattered. I'm not entirely sure what he would have gone for. If he did go for the Ice Punch, that would have meant that the Togekiss probably wouldn't have been able to Baton Pass the weakness policy out into the Mega Kangaskhan. However, I do think that even if it didn't, I felt like Jake was probably still winning this match just because of the way that he prepped and his offensive play throughout the course of the match. Turbo was just caught on the back foot for the majority of the match, and he couldn't really do much about it.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like Turbo could have played this game better. He said in the chat after the game that he was afraid of a HP ground from the Togekiss, which is why he didn't go into the Tran initially, I believe. But that definitely could have been remedied because if he had kept his Dusknoir alive, I felt like it could have helped VS the Kangaskhan as well if it didn't have like a fighting move. But other than that, Jake's prep really just showed how good of a prepper he is, and Turbo really didn't have the tools to be able to deal with the Togekiss. So overall, I felt like this was a not a very good performance by Turbo compared to his previous weeks, and he should definitely try and get back into his groove before playoff starts. Because I do believe that this game was not his best showing at all, and Jake's weakness policy Togekiss kind of just ran through Turbo's team.
Yeah. Now moving on to, I believe, my number 3 and your number 2, we have Hiker Toad and his Boston Bulldogs. Now looking at this matchup, I really liked Hiker's prep as well as his play in this match. The Scarf Uxie I thought was an interesting bring, but a good bring as well. I think he probably should have EV'd enough speed in order to outspeed the Infernape. I know that could have potentially given off the fact that he was Scarf, however, I do think that the chip on the Infernape would have been really good considering it was one of Illusion's main threats to his team, despite Hiker having enough pivoting options in order to pivot into it with his Zard X, his Rotom Wash and his Uxie. Another pivotal moment in this match was when he was able to get the trick off up against the Gligar, which was unexpected on Illusion's part, but really good for him because it set up the Calm Mind Comfy sweep as well. He was able to bring the right set as well. If he didn't bring Taunt, then something like the Thunder Wave or even Toxic Porygon 2 could have potentially neutered it, and Illusion may have potentially been able to 1v1 it. However, he did play around the Infernape really well, and he wasn't really threatened much by most of Illusion's team, and I felt like Calm and Comfy in the end just ran through Illusion's team.
Yeah, definitely. I felt like Hiker really saw the potential of Comfy this game and how well it would have dealt with Illusion's team. Because if you look from preview, there wasn't any fairy resists or immunities on Illusion's team, and he knew that Taunt was able to break past Illusion's walls, so it could prevent them from toxicking the Comfy. And he also set it up on the Sceptile, which was probably the best mon for him to set up on, considering it was probably the weakest member on Illusion's team. And with that, he was able to avoid any unnecessary damage. And Hiker also managed to keep up rocks consistently with the Rotom on the field. So that was another great play by him. And other than that, there really isn't much to say. He was able to pivot around the Illusion's largest defensive threat and the Infernape great, utilizing the fact that it bought Life Orb, so it can chip itself down. It's the combination of Charizard and Uxie pivoting it in on his respective stabs. And he was able to just get in Comfy and just clean up the game from there.
Yeah, I do agree. I think Hiker is probably going to be one of, if not the scariest teams to face in playoff. However, moving to the undisputed number 1, and I believe he has been number 1 for a few weeks now, it is Techno and his Carolina Pantherians. Now, looking at his matchup up against Tone, Lycanroc was a really, really good bring on his part, realizing the fact that a lot of Tone's offense basically fell over to either the Stone Edge, if not was checked amazingly after some chip by the Accelerock, which I thought was really good prep. He had really good options in basically dealing with most of Tone's team, apart from, again, the physical fires, which he's been struggling with, in fairness to him, a lot this season. However, throughout the course of the season, he's been able to deal with Arcanine twice, actually, with to great effect, which I think is good props on his part. He was able to get the Komodo weakened down. He was able to get the Mew. He was able to kill off the Mew with his Greninja, and I felt like that was the turning point in this match. And I felt that's what won this match. When the Mew was gone, Tone really didn't have much in order to take on the rest of his team at that point. And again, another really good showing from Techno, and I think he's honestly the best team in the league at this point.
Yeah, definitely. Techno played really well mid to late game this game, using weakening pretty much Tone's main rock resist in the, or not resist, but yeah, resist in the Kamo, and weakening the Primarina and killing off the Mew. Considering these three are the largest threats to the Lycanroc clean. And other than that, I really also liked his Boomblast Sylveon to prevent the soundproof Kamo from walling it. And other than that, I do believe he played a really good game, being able to weaken the Kamo, as I said, and take out the Mew with his Greninja, not over predicting and weakening the Primarina hugely as well. Overall, really good textbookly played game by Techno, and was able to pretty much just beat Tone's checks to Lycanroc and sweep with Lycanroc. And other than that, I did really like his Akka Steelix to be able to beat the Arcanine, and the Venusaur was a bit offensive set, I believe, as well, and he was also able to toxic a lot the Kamo with the Steelix as well, so he got a lot of mileage out of the Steelix. And other than that, he played the game really well, and he was just able to get up rocks and then weaken Tone's Mons and then clean up with Lycanroc.
Yeah, again, similar to most of the matches, especially with a few of our top ranked teams. Sorry, there isn't really much to say just because most of them won emphatically and very convincingly this week. But that will draw this week's minors power rankings to a conclusion. Be sure to check out all the coaches, both majors and minors, especially in the minors and majors. Minors, I think there's one or two teams that have an outside chance of making playoffs at this point. So you definitely want to stick around and see what happens in week 10. Obviously, majors is still going on. I believe it's at week 5 or week 6 at this point. So there's still a fair amount for a lot of the teams, even some of the bottom place teams in majors, in order to potentially make a playoff push. As well as that, be sure to check out the Discord, which I believe will be linked in the description. There you can interact with all the coaches, all the mods as well, and just talk to basically anyone who's interested in the NPL. As well as that, also be sure to check out all the analysts that help create all the content on the NPL channel, and also be sure to check out the fan doc. I'm not too sure if it's been updated. However, it hopefully should be updated by then. Is there anything you want to add on, Genius?
Oh no, not really. Definitely be sure to check out all the coaches, as BM said, and definitely join the fan Discord, considering you can interact with all of your favorite coaches there. And with that, that's going to bring an end to our Week 9 power rankings for NPL. Thank you very much for watching, and bye.
Okay, that was